We have a wonderful guest, Hans von Spakovsky, Senior Legal Fellow at the Heritage Foundation, who's one of the country's great experts on voting in this country, given the fact that he's worked in that field in the federal government in Republican administrations. Now, Hans, they keep pushing this H.R. 1, S.R. 1. Right. Stacey Abrams is all over cable TV saying if you oppose this, you oppose minority voting. Joe Biden has said that this is a throwback to Jim Crow. They are using propaganda, the most divisive, inflammatory propaganda that they can think of. I have a different take. This is a wholesale attack on the franchise against every single American in this country, regardless of race, regardless of where they live. What is your take on this? And please go through the proposal so the American people know what's going on here.
First of all, calling what Biden and others saying propaganda is exactly right. What this bill does is, first of all, it's a federalization, a takeover, a nationalization of the running of elections, which has been done by the states since our founding. And what it is intended to do is to destroy the security of the election process. It has provisions all throughout it that get rid of the basic safety and security protocols that states have put in place. And then has all these mandates it imposes on the states that will make things even worse. Basically take all of the worst things that happened in last year's election, cement them into federal law, and then make things even worse. I mean, just a couple of examples. Look, it's a big bill, 800 pages. But to give you just a couple of examples, this bill would basically gut state voter ID laws across the country. Every state would have to allow a person to vote if they simply sign a form saying, yeah, I am who I claim I am. So, Mark, if you went into a polling place and claimed you were Hans von Spakovsky, they couldn't ask you for an ID. As long as you signed a form saying, oh, yeah, I'm Hans von Spakovsky, they have to let you to vote. Combine this with the fact that they require states to put in same-day voter registration. States have to allow people to walk into a polling place on Election Day, register, and immediately vote. Since they can't ask you for an ID, again, anybody could walk into any polling place anywhere in the country using a fake name and a fake address. They have to be allowed to register. They can vote. No, election officials can't prevent that. And then you can walk out of the polling place and go do it again elsewhere. I mean, that's what the combination of that brings in. They also want to destroy any and all security with absentee ballots. And remember, absentee ballots are the most vulnerable ballots to being stolen or altered or changed. And so they got a whole series of things. First of all, every state around the nation has to send an absentee ballot request form to every registered voter. If a registered voter wants to be put on a permanent absentee ballot list, all they have to do is request it once, and from then on, in every future election, a ballot will simply be mailed to them. That is a terrible process because voter registration rolls are in such bad shape across the country. So you're basically going to have millions of ballots arriving at the homes of people who no longer live there, who have died, and those ballots could fall in the hands of people who might actually vote them. By the way, a lot of states, very smartly, have a witness signature requirement on absentee ballots. Again, that's a wise policy because with a witness, you've got somebody who can authenticate that it was actually the voter who filled out and signed the ballot. No state would be able to enforce a witness signature requirement on an absentee ballot. And this ballot would override any state's law that prevents vote trafficking. In about half the states, places like North Carolina, they prohibit third-party strangers from showing up at a voter's door to say, hey, I'll deliver your ballot for you. Again, that's a wise policy because it prevents candidates and campaign staffers and political consultants, all of whom have a stake in the outcome of the election, from being able to get their hands on a voter's ballot. You will recall that's exactly what happened in 2018 in the 9th Congressional District in North Carolina. A political consultant and his staff who've been criminally charged were picking up people's ballots, altering them, changing them, forging them. And the reason that came to light was because that kind of vote trafficking is prohibited in North Carolina. That's how folks found out about it. That would now have to be legal in every state. So Democrats want party activists and political consultants to be able to get their hands on absentee ballots. Voter rolls, as I said, are in notoriously bad shape across the country, and this has numerous provisions to make it even harder for states to clean up their voter rolls, to compare their voter rolls with other states to find people who are registered in more than one state, to use the U.S. Postal Service's national change of address system to find people who have registered or in other states or have moved. And another thing it does is it requires states to put in automatic voter registration. In other words, every state agency that you, as a resident of that state, may have an interaction with, whether it's a welfare office, a DMV office, a state college or university, will then have to automatically register you to vote without asking you. And the law even includes federal agencies. There's a whole list of federal agencies that are going to have to send data on the people that they think are residents of a particular state to state officials to automatically register them. Look, Mark, you know what that's going to lead to. It's going to lead to multiple duplicate registrations of the same person, multiple registrations of people in different states, and it's going to lead to the registration of people who aren't eligible to vote, like non-citizens. But states aren't going to have any choice about that. They're going to have to do this. It requires every state to allow open, wide, online voter registration. Look, some states have put in online voter registration, but they limit it to folks on whom the state already has a record. In other words, for example, if you have a driver's license in a state, they've already checked your ID. They've already checked your identification documents. And states will allow you to also then register to vote online. This bill would allow anyone to register online, which, as you know, is going to open up the voter registration system to hackers and cyber criminals and could lead to massive voter registration fraud.
These Democrats are not acting on behalf of the country. They're acting on behalf of their party. Everything they do, whether it's spending, whether it's critical race or critical gender theory, whether it's open borders, it's to empower the Democrat Party. And this is the core of it. Change the voting system, get rid of all the protections against fraud. Why? Because apparently they think it benefits them mightily.